Hi guys, and welcome back to day 20 of Inktober. It is really flying by, actually. It definitely doesn't feel like it's been as many days as it looks. And I did miss a few days, but for the most part I've actually been pretty consistent. So I'm really excited about this, about having that many pieces that I've completed. But today I am working on this little piece. It's actually on Canson XL watercolor paper today. I had a sheet of it that I had already torn up and gotten ready and prepared, and I hadn't quite used it yet, and I wanted to do something relatively quick because right now it is actually 1:15 in the morning, so it's a little bit early for me, or late I guess, and I had been working on another project and I definitely wanted to make sure that I got Inktober done, so I started it much later than I really should have. It was probably like 10:45 when I started working on Inktober. So I was kind of planning on doing an idea that was relatively simple, that I could produce quickly and that I could sketch right on top of the paper, because that's much faster. It's one less step of having to transfer it on with the Lightbox and messing with that. So I went with the Canson paper because, like I mentioned before, I like using that paper when I'm sketching right onto the paper itself. It's a little bit cheaper, so it doesn't feel quite so scary when I erase it and possibly damage the paper, but that worked out pretty well. But when I was starting to sketch out ideas, I actually looked in my sketchbook first, and the way that I really like to do that is I like to look at my sketchbooks and see what stuff I just drew out of my own head and what ideas I've been putting down, and then I choose something that I'm interested in, and then I start looking at actual reference online for details that I can put in there to make it more realistic and make it look more full and complete of an idea. And I'm starting to really try to include actual real details and stuff like this, where I want to do something that looks a little bit more based in reality. And now that I'm starting to do that more, making the conscious effort of really looking into actual reference, I know, surprising, I've actually seen a very significant improvement in my sketches and my finished work that I'm working off my sketches. But basically just exciting to be able to see the progression of moving from an idea that's only in my head into something that's much more rich and fulfilling, to have all those more completed ideas. But when I actually found the sketch in my sketchbook, it was way simpler than this and much more benign looking. It was kind of this cat-shaped mask that I had drawn, but it was a lot nicer looking and calmer. And then when I started looking up references and ideas of masks, I started finding skull masks, and particularly cat skull masks, which reflected this cat-based mask that I was referencing off of from my own sketch. So it all led from there, and it was really a very happy kind of, not really an accident, but it was really happy that I was able to find these skeletal masks, because that was kind of exactly what I didn't realize that I wanted to do, but once I saw it, I was like, yes, that is what I want to do. I want to do something that is a little bit creepier and does have a skull in it, because I love drawing skulls. So that was perfect. It really led into something that I was a lot more excited about, but it was still kind of in line with that original idea. And today I'm using the Higgins Black Magic ink, which I've used a little bit so far, and I haven't used it with, or maybe I have, with a brush like this, but I feel very rusty when I was working on this one. I think that my brush strokes, I was just a little bit too hesitant on them, and some of them I was like nervous to put it down, so you could kind of tell it was a little bit less even and less of a graceful motion than I would have liked. So I think that I definitely need to do more of this brush work in a couple more of the Inktober's, but I did want to do it for this piece specifically because, like I said, that I wanted it to be relatively fast. The ink brush, it works really well for making this really graphic, grungy texture and look, and it's a lot quicker to be able to get a very impactful image with a brush and ink, even if I'm being very careful and kind of rusty, because I'm able to get much thicker lines, ones that are much more dynamic. I can build things up quicker, I can fill things in black. So overall it was definitely the right choice for this one, because I did want her to have a very powerful, striking line work for her, so that she really had that emotion and that look that I wanted. So yeah, I definitely do need to get my hand more used to actually doing brush ink again. But yeah, I always love the feeling of it. Like, I mean, I know that, like, I know I'm an artist, I make a lot of art, but when I'm doing that, when I'm using a brush and using ink, it's like, that is like the epitome of being an artist for me. It's like, that's the moment when I'm like, yes, I'm a real artist. Look at me, I have ink. But yeah, it's just really fun. And this is just the point where I'm starting to build up a little bit of a value to her. I did tape her down because I wasn't sure how much she was going to warp. I didn't actually end up using a lot of water on her, so it didn't really warp at all, but I'd rather be safe than sorry. But in the past, I've mentioned this Canson paper with the drafting tape that I use. It has torn the paper before. It never tears any of my other papers, but it does tear this paper. So I just made sure that I stuck it to my hoodie a couple of times before I taped it down. That way it lost a lot of its stick once it was down. So when I peeled it up, I didn't have any issues at all. So if you're doing something similar like that and you have the paper that's kind of tearing with your tape, this is a really easy way to do it. And actually you can find a lot cheaper tape that's a little bit tackier. You can use this kind of method for it. I used regular like masking tape that you can get at Walmart for many years when I was younger, but yeah, like the drafting tape is intended to be less sticky because it's supposed to be used on paper in this kind of application. So I definitely prefer it, but it's not the only option as far as tape. But I just have been really loving doing these ink washes lately. I think I've always really loved completely grayscale pieces like this, where it's just really stark and black and white and gray. I love pieces like that. I love the dynamic of it and the more somber tone of it. So it's really good to be able to do a lot of pieces where that's kind of a limitation. I mean, I can use other inks and I can use really whatever I want. I mean, the parameters of the challenge itself is really entirely up to me and what I want to choose to do. But lately I've been really, really gravitating towards simply doing black and white, these ink washes. And I've been really enjoying the process a lot more, I think. I mean, being able to just sit down and worry about just the values and get this really sharp graphic image down, it's a lot less rethinking and being a little bit nervous about what color I'm putting down. It's a lot more just diving in and making it happen. And I'm really enjoying that feeling of just being able to just power through a piece and just let my mind wander a little bit more, because I'm not needing to be as precise, because there's not as many things that I have to be thinking about and juggling with no color. So I just really like working in black and white. I love that look. So I definitely will start playing around with that in my digital work. I would definitely like to do more of these black and white with like one sharp color that's the contrast. So I think I'll have a lot of fun playing with that and really pushing that kind of an aesthetic in my digital stuff more. And the water that I'm using today is actually the same water that I was using yesterday for that ink wash, because when I'm doing ink washes, I actually tend to like to keep the water, because the water is a really nice, really light gray tone. So I tend to just use that water until it's too dark to be a nice base level. But this one, since I had rinsed my brush out with that metallic silver ink from yesterday, it has these really tiny fine glittery points, so they were all like mixed in with all the ink washes that I was using on this piece. So this piece has this really soft glittery shimmer in all the ink washes, and I think it looks so pretty. It was really this very happy accident where it just kind of ended up that way, but I really love that look, how it's just really subtle and it's not really like super glittery or screaming out that it's really shiny. It's just really soft and subtle, and I like that look. But that is everything for today's Inktober. I just feel very accomplished that I was able to get it done and stay away for it, so I feel good about that. That was definitely a big triumph for me, is being able to continue this for my streak of not missing one for a little bit longer. But yeah, as usual, I gotta give a shout out. She is on my shop. So if you're interested in purchasing the original of this one, she is available right now. And there'll be a link at the very bottom of the video right in the corner and down in the description as well. And I'll have all the tools and everything that I've used listed in the description. So yeah, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you guys tomorrow for the next Inktober.